Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, chapter 30. This chapter, this is the 28th verse of this chapter.
Anyaradito nunam Bhagavan Hare Ishvaraha Yanno Vihaya Govinda Nitoyam Anayadraha. Certainly, this particular gopi has perfectly worshipped the all-powerful personality of Godhead Govinda, since he was so pleased with her that he abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place.
So this is, of course, referring to Srimati Radharani, although Sukadeva Goswami doesn't explicitly name her.
He does as Radhito.
Ratito. Gopis search for Krishna, because if devotees remember, Krishna had called them and he'd asked them, "What are you doing here?" So they in turn asked him not to be so cruel, but they also became, and then he started to dance with them and they became a little bit proud, and then he disappeared. This chapter describes how the gopis, tormented through the night by separation from Krishna, wandered like mad women from forest to forest in search of him. So they began to feel proud when they were with him, thinking themselves to be the most fortunate women in the universe, due to being favored by Krishna, the company of Krishna. Krishna, who is known as Keshav, could immediately understand their pride caused by their great fortune of enjoying him personally. And in order to show them his causeless mercy, he immediately disappeared from the scene, exhibiting his opulence of renunciation. So the lesson to learn, we should be very careful that we do not become proud. Of course, gopis are very special personalities, and this is all part of the Leela between them and Krishna. So we shouldn't think that the gopis were actually proud. Krishna has disappeared because of our pride. This is what they're thinking. The gopis were aware of the reason for Krishna's sudden disappearance. They could understand that when they had been enjoying Krishna, they thought themselves to be the most fortunate women in the universe. And since they were feeling proud, Krishna disappeared to curb their pride. And you can see them, they are quite morose. And of course, the lesson to learn from here, which isn't the mistake they've made, because they're completely dedicated to Krishna. But we often make mistakes. It's very important to understand that when we may have made a mistake, then we try to correct that mistake, which is what the gopis did. They realized why Krishna left, and they corrected themselves. When Krishna disappeared from the arena of the rastas, the gopis, their minds fully absorbed in thoughts of him, felt great sorrow and began looking for him in the various forests. From all the moving and non-moving creatures, they asked for news of Krishna's whereabouts. They even asked the trees about him. So there's some quite interesting. Do you want to go through this?
Oh, Ashwatha tree, or Plaksha, or Nyagrodha, have you seen Krishna? The son of Nand Maharaj has gone away after stealing our minds with his loving smiles and glances. O Kurabaka tree, or Ashoka, or Naga, Punaga, and Champaka, has Balram's younger brother, whose smile removes the audacity of all proud women, passed this way? O most kind Tulasi, to whom the feet of Govinda are so dear, have you seen that infallible one walk by, wearing you and encircled by swarms of bees? O Malati, O Malika, O Chati, O Yutika, has Madhav gone by here, giving you pleasure with the touch of his hand? O Chuta, O Priyala, O Panasha, Ashan, and Kovedra, O Jambu, O Arka, O Bilva, Bakul and Amra, O Kadamba and Nipa, we have lost our minds. So please tell us where Krishna has gone. Kaushila Devi, you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to know, Mataji, why did Krishna disappear?
He detected a little pride in the gopis, because the gopis were thinking, we're so fortunate, we have Krishna all to ourselves. So Krishna saw that little pride and he disappeared. But actually, in the next chapter, is it the next chapter? In chapter 32, Krishna actually explains why he disappeared. And it's an amazing explanation. So we'll go through that, not tomorrow, but on Friday. actually
Okay,
why he
Prabhuji.
is. But externally, it's because the gopis were proud that they had Krishna's company. Nobody else had his company. But then actually Krishna explains the real reason why he left in chapter 32. I won't tell you now.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is a really amazing picture, amazing painting somebody has drawn. They began searching for him and they couldn't find him. They're simply going mad or thinking about pastimes in great love and affection. They began to question the trees, the plants, the creepers, and so many different questions. So the lesson to learn, which we've just gone through, is we also have to search for Krishna with all our hearts. So the gopis are a great, great example. Following in their footsteps would actually lead us to Krishna, because their mood was very much, their heart was with Krishna. So if he wasn't in front of them, they would be looking for him. So also we have to try to somehow develop that same mood. Where is Krishna? Gopis questioned the earth and the creepers. The gopis glorified the earth, who touches the lotus feet of Krishna always. Right? The earth is always in touch with Krishna's feet. They asked the wives of the deer. They asked the creepers of Krishna's whereabouts. To the trees, they said, "Oh trees, we see that you are bowing down." When the younger brother of Ram walked by here, followed by intoxicating bees swarming around his tulsi manjaris, decorating his garland, did he acknowledge your obeisances with his affectionate glances? He must have been resting his arms on the shoulder of his beloved and carrying a lotus flower in his free hand. Finally, they became so distraught that they began imitating his pastimes. Thus absorbed in Krishna, thoughts of Krishna, the Lord of Rama, Rama is Lakshmi. Yeah, and you could say Radha as well. The gopis began acting out his various transcendental pastimes. One gopi imitated Putana, while another acted like infant Krishna. Another gopi, crying in imitation of infant Krishna, kicked a gopi who was taking the role of the cart demon, Sakatasura. One gopi took the role of Trinivarta and carried away another who was acting like infant Krishna. Two gopis acted like Rama and Krishna, in the midst of several others who took the role of cowherd boys. One gopi enacted Krishna's killing of the demon Vatsasura, represented by another gopi, and a pair of gopis acted out the killing of Bakasura. One gopi imitated Krishna calling the cows who had wandered far away, playing his flute, and Krishna engaging in various sports. Another gopi, her mind fixed on Krishna, walked about with her arms resting on the shoulder of a friend and declared, "I am Krishna, just see how gracefully I move." Replicating the lifting of Golden Hill, "Don't be afraid of the wind and the rain," said one gopi, "I will save you." With that, she lifted her shawl above her head. One gopi climbed on another's shoulder, putting her foot on another's head, saying, "Go away from here, O wicked snake. You should know that I have taken birth in this world just to punish the envious." Another gopi spoke up, "Who is that snake?" Just anybody like to tell me the answer?
What snake, Prabhuji?
This snake here, who Krishna danced on his foot and on his head.
Kalia.
Yeah. Another gopi spoke up, "My dear cowherd boys, look at this raging forest fire. Quickly close your eyes and I shall protect you." Another gopi tied up her slender companion with a flower garland and said, "Now I will bind this boy who has broken the butter pots and stolen the butter." Second gopi covered her face and beautiful eyes, pretending to be afraid. Damodar Leela. So in this way, the gopis were remembering Krishna, even though Krishna wasn't there. They were so absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Later, while wandering in the corner of a forest, the gopis saw Krishna's footprints, which appeared mixed with Srimati, Radharani's. Seeing these footprints perturbed them greatly, and they declared that surely Srimati Radharani must have worshipped Krishna with unusual excellence, since she has been privileged to associate with him in seclusion. This particular gopi has most perfectly worshipped the Lord, since he has abandoned all of us to enjoy with her. Oops. Oh, what happened? Okay. So then they carried on. Further along the path, the gopis came to a place where they could no longer see Srimati Radharani's footprints. They concluded that Krishna must have taken Radharani onto his shoulders. In another place, they noticed Krishna's footprints were showing only the toes. Thus the gopis concluded he must have been picking flowers by standing on his toes with which to decorate his beloved. In another spot, the gopis saw signs that led them to imagine that Krishna had been tying the locks of Srimati Radharani's hair. As the gopis wandered about, they became bewildered. They pointed out various signs of Krishna's pastimes. The particular gopi whom Krishna had led into a secluded forest where he had abandoned all the other young girls began to think herself the best of women. So my beloved has rejected all other gopis, she thought, even though they were driven by Cupid himself. He had chosen to reciprocate with me alone. So all these thoughts, they actually brought pain to the minds of the gopis. Why pain? Because they were so enamored by Krishna and his flute, they wanted to be with him. So because of this special attention she received from Krishna, she rather began to consider herself the most fortunate of women. She told him that she could not walk any further and that he would have to carry her on his shoulders. There's Srimati Radha, there's Krishna, Radha Krishna, Ki Jai. Thus addressed, Lord Krishna replied, "Just climb on my shoulder." But as soon as he said this, he disappeared. His beloved consort then immediately felt great remorse. Srimati Radharani, extremely troubled, then began looking everywhere for him. When she finally met her gopi friends, she related to them what had happened. Then they all felt very sad. All the gopis then went out to look for Krishna in the forest, entering the depths of the forest, going as far as the moonlight reached. But when they found themselves engulfed in darkness, they decided to turn back and return to the shore of the Yamuna. Their minds absorbed in thoughts of him, they then conversed about him, acted out his pastimes, felt themselves filled with his presence. They completely forgot about their homes as they loudly sang the glories of Krishna's transcendental qualities. Meditating on Krishna and eagerly hoping he would come, they sat down together to sing about him. And Krishna would be watching them. They would go mad. One would pretend they're Krishna, the other would be serving as if they're Krishna. Due to Krishna's absence, they all became crazy. Each one of them told the other, she was Krishna himself. And then they assembled, they chanted Krishna's names very loudly. They moved from one part of the forest to another, searching for him. Finally, the gopis returned to the banks of the Yamuna and assembled there, expecting Krishna to return to them. They simply engaged in chanting the glories of Sri Krishna. So that's the end of chapter 30. It's quite an extraordinary chapter. Gopis searching for Krishna. And for us, somehow or other, if we can get the mood of feeling that separation from Krishna, which is very, very difficult to do because unfortunately we feel separation from material things in this world. But our consciousness has to at some point change. So any questions, any comments? Otherwise, we can go to the lessons. Madhusun Prabhu?
Yeah, Haribol,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Am I catching up with 28?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean. Okay, chapter 28. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Chapter 28, it's amazing that as per verse 23, Krishna thought. So it's amazing when Shukdev Goswami is saying that Krishna thought that this living entity is not. So it's not like, I thought something, it's even Krishna thinks as well. So Krishna was thinking. So Krishna thought about living entities. So in Srila Prabhupada sort of agrees and with his thoughts and comments in this purport in this way that people in general are simply ignorant and they do not seriously consider their ultimate destination. As usual, Lord Sri Krishna is able to say many profound and complex things in a few simple words. So we can see that in Bhagavad Gita as well. He just says a few things, were very, very powerful and there's still complex issues, but I think it's resolved in Krishna in simple way. But how for fortunate we are. So Prabhupada is saying, I like this page when he says, how fortunate we are that God is not a dry field of energy, a transcendent, effulgent blob, or nothing at all, as various people would have it. In fact, he is the most wonderful personality of Godhead, full of absolute personal qualities, and certainly whatever we can do, he can do better, as evidenced by his brilliant way of speaking. So it's amazing, Then Krishna also reveals his eternal transcendental abode, Krishna Lok, to the cowherd man. So when Nand Maharaj was then talking about the spiritual, Krishna goes to Varuna, and then Krishna takes all these cowherd men into the lake, and Yamuna, actually it says that it's a spiritual kind of Brahmajyoti. Through that, it reveals the wonderful Krishna Lok. So chapter 29, Srila Prabhupada instructs in his purport that since Krishna consciousness cannot be subordinate to any other religious principle, a guru who engages his followers in materialistic sinful activities loses his status as a guru. Srila Prabhupada stated that the system of monarchy collapsed in Europe because the monarchs abused and exploited their position. So also we have to understand, we also have to understand the position of gopis as being on the highest platform of spiritual perfection. They were transcendental to all positive and negative religious considerations. In other words, they were the eternal lovers of the absolute truth. So that's what their position is, gopis. And certainly, there's very powerful laws. If you abuse, then you lose. So whatever you try to abuse, you lose it in the end. So we'll see how things develop in places where people have tried to abuse. Certainly, you look at situation developing in places like Afghanistan, and when they try to come and overpower and abuse. So, okay, chapter 29. Yeah, okay, thank you. This 30 and yeah. Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purport that great personalities like the goddess Rama, the wife of Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma are not at all sinful, but in the ecstasy of pure Krishna consciousness, they feel themselves fallen and impure. Thus, desiring to purify themselves, they blissfully take the dust of the Lord's lotus feet on their head. So even, personalities, this kind of shows that, it's not, some people say, oh, Vishnu is God, and Lord Shiva is God, Brahma, and this trilogy, God, Brahma, Vishnu, but they also, in their ecstasy, do feel that they're actually impure, or they like to be purified by Lord's lotus feet, the dust of them. Well, next chapter, obviously, you're going to do it, but this is the famous Gopi Gita that will lead on to. So it's really worth reading, studying, listening to, singing also. And above all, got to understand its deep transcendental meaning, which will come out from the Gopi Geet. So that's next is really wonderful. That's the epic of Bhagavatam, I think,
Indeed.
Okay, Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very interesting how Lakshmi Devi, Shiva, and Brahma, they take that humble position. That humility is such a powerful tool to become close to the Supreme Lord. And tomorrow, we'll actually, when I say we, I mean Karuna Bandha will sing Gita, Gopi Geet, and we'll spend a bit of time. We'll just do the one chapter, spend a bit of time on that. Thank you so much. Any questions, any comments?
Yeah, I love the Gopi Geet. It's amazing. Actually, I like listening to it. There's so many different versions of it, but I look forward to listening to Karuna Bandha singing. Lovely. Haribol.
Yeah, very true. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's stop. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, 10th canto ki jai.